You wake up already tired. Not physically tired, though that too, but tired from the moment consciousness returns and with it, the weight of everything you see. There is a war happening inside you, and it starts fresh every morning. The war between who you actually are and who you need to be to get through the day, between what you know to be true and what you must pretend not to notice, between your integrity and your survival. You have tried to make peace with this. You have tried gratitude practices and mindfulness and positive thinking and all the things that promise to ease the burden of consciousness. But they do not work because they are not designed for what you are experiencing. They are designed for people who want to feel better about the life they are living. You are fighting something different. You are fighting the fact that you cannot stop seeing, cannot stop understanding, cannot stop the relentless awareness that makes every interaction, every choice, every moment, a negotiation between what is real and what is acceptable. And the exhaustion of this, the sheer daily cost of being awake in a world that rewards sleep, this is not something you have been able to name until now. Because what you are experiencing is not a personal failing or a mental health crisis or a sign that something is wrong with you. It is the inevitable consequence of consciousness that has gone too far to turn back. Let me be clear about what I mean by awareness, because the word gets used in spiritual circles to mean something peaceful, something that brings liberation and ease. That is not what I am talking about. I am talking about the kind of awareness that Hannah Arendt described when she wrote about thinking as the internal dialogue that will not stop. The conversation with yourself that examines, questions, dissects. The kind of consciousness that once activated cannot be deactivated. You start seeing patterns, the way people perform rather than exist, the way systems operate to maintain themselves rather than serve the people within them, the way language is used to obscure rather than reveal, the way everyone around you seems content with explanations that do not actually explain anything. And you cannot unhear what you have heard, cannot unsee what you have seen. You walk through the world and you are translating constantly, translating what people say into what they mean into what they fear into what they are avoiding. And all of this happens automatically now without your consent or control. This is what I mean by awareness, not the gentle noticing of your breath or the present moment, but the unrelenting perception that strips away every comfortable illusion until you are left facing reality without any of the numbing mechanisms most people use to make it bearable. The fighting happens because you cannot fully live in this awareness and also function in the world as it is currently constructed. Arendt understood this when she distinguished between the vita contemplativa, the life of the mind, and the vita activa, the life of action and engagement in the social world. She knew these were not easily reconciled. The person who thinks deeply, who questions thoroughly, who refuses to accept comfortable lies, this person finds themselves in constant conflict with the requirements of social life. Because social life requires a certain amount of thoughtlessness, not stupidity, but the ability to stop thinking at strategic moments, to accept things at face value, to go along, to not ask the next question that would unravel everything. You have lost this ability, or perhaps you never had it. And so you fight yourself every single day. You fight the urge to say what you are actually thinking. You fight the impulse to refuse participation in things you see clearly as hollow or harmful. You fight the desire to just stop, to step away from the entire performance and let the consequences come. But you do not stop. You keep going. And the effort of this, the continuous self-suppression required to maintain your place in a world that does not want your awareness, this is what creates the exhaustion you feel down to your bones. What makes this particularly difficult is that you cannot explain it to most people. When you are tired, they tell you to rest. When you are frustrated, they tell you to change your perspective. When you are isolated, they tell you to reach out, to connect, to be vulnerable. But your isolation is not from lack of connection. It is from too much perception. You are isolated by what you see, not by what you lack. You sit in rooms full of people and you are alone because you are watching a different movie than everyone else is watching. They see the surface. You see the mechanisms beneath. They hear what is said. You hear what is meant and what is avoided. They accept the story. You see the structure that makes the story necessary. And there is no way to bridge this gap. without either dulling yourself or alienating them. So you choose the third option. You fight yourself. You push down what you see. You perform the expected responses. You participate in the shared illusions because that is what social existence requires. And you do this every single day, and every single day it costs you something. If this is resonating with something in you, something you have not been able to articulate, then stay with me here. I create these explorations for people who cannot stop seeing, who are tired of being told their awareness is the problem. If you want to go deeper into these territories with me, consider subscribing. Not because you need another thing to consume, but because this journey of understanding what consciousness actually costs, it helps to have others walking it with you. Here is what most spiritual teaching gets wrong about awareness. It presents consciousness as uniformly beneficial, as if seeing clearly always makes life better, as if understanding more deeply naturally leads to peace. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of how consciousness actually operates. Arendt recognized something crucial when she examined what she called the banality of evil. She was not just talking about how ordinary people commit atrocities. She was identifying the protective function of thoughtlessness, the way that not thinking too deeply, not questioning too thoroughly, not examining too closely, this allows people to participate in systems and structures that they would reject if they truly looked at them. Thoughtlessness is not always a failing. Sometimes it is a mercy. It allows people to live without the constant friction between what they see and what they must do. You have been robbed of this mercy. Your thinking will not stop. Your questioning will not cease. Your examination continues whether you want it to or not, and this means you feel the friction constantly. Every compromise registers. Every small surrender is noticed. Every time you choose practicality over principle, every time you stay silent when you want to speak, every time you perform normalcy when you feel alien, you are aware of it. Fully, painfully aware. This is the price of consciousness. Not enlightenment, not peace, but unrelenting awareness of every gap between what is real and what is pretended. The daily fight is not one big battle, but 1,000 small ones. You are at work, and someone says something you know is not true, and you have to decide in that moment whether to challenge it or let it pass. Let it pass usually because challenging every untruth is not sustainable, but letting it pass means living with the knowledge that you participated in a lie through silence. You are in a social situation, and everyone is performing enthusiasm for something meaningless, and you have to manufacture a matching enthusiasm, because to be honest about your indifference would mark you as difficult, as negative, as someone who brings the energy down. You are making a decision, and you see clearly that one choice serves your integrity while another serves your security, and you choose security like a reasonable person would. But you cannot lie to yourself about what you did. You cannot dress it up as something other than the small surrender it was. These moments accumulate. They build up in you like a pressure that has nowhere to go, and the fight is the fight to keep going anyway, to keep making these compromises, to keep participating in what you see through, to keep living in a world that feels increasingly unreal the more clearly you see it. I know many of you watching this have been carrying this alone. You have never told anyone the full extent of what you see, what you understand, what you cannot stop noticing. You have been afraid that naming it would confirm what you secretly fear, that you are the problem, that your awareness is a malfunction rather than a capacity. But here is what I need you to understand. The moment you name this, the moment you acknowledge out loud that awareness has become a burden rather than a gift, something shifts. You stop carrying it in isolation. So let me ask you directly, how long have you been fighting yourself like this? When did you first realize that seeing clearly was making your life harder instead of easier? I want you to share in the comments, not because I need engagement, but because someone else watching this needs to see your words. They need to know they are not the only one who wakes up tired from the effort of existing with this much consciousness. And if you cannot find the words right now, if it feels too exposing to articulate, just type this. This is my experience too. That is all. Just those 5 words. Because when you do, you give permission to dozens of others to acknowledge the same thing. Your willingness to be seen in this struggle helps break the silence that keeps all of us believing we are alone in it. So comment below. Tell me what this cost you. I read every single one, and I promise you, you are not failing by finding consciousness difficult. You are experiencing exactly what consciousness, when taken seriously, produces. What you are living through is what Arendt called the examined life, and she never promised it would be comfortable. Socrates said the unexamined life is not worth living, but he did not mention that the examined life is not easy to live. Because examination means you cannot accept things simply because they are presented to you. You must test them, question them, hold them up to scrutiny, and most of what you find when you do this does not hold up. Most of the narratives you are told collapse under examination. Most of the values your culture claims to hold are contradicted by its actions. Most of the people around you are not living according to what they say they believe, but according to what is safe, what is rewarded, what is expected. And once you see this, once you understand the gap between what people claim and what they do, between what society promises and what it delivers, between what you are told is true and what you can observe to be true, you cannot unsee it. You are left in a permanent state of double consciousness. You see what is, and you see what everyone is pretending is. And you must navigate between these two realities constantly. This is where the fighting becomes most intense, because you are not fighting external enemies. You are fighting the part of yourself that wants to stop seeing, the part that wishes you could just believe what you are told, the part that envies people who seem content with surfaces, the part that wonders if maybe you are overthinking, maybe you are too critical, maybe you are making things harder than they need to be. This voice is strong because it promises relief. It promises that if you could just relax your standards, lower your expectations, stop paying such close attention, you could be happy like other people seem to be. And some days you almost believe this. Some days you try it. You try to care less, think less, notice less. You try to participate in the shared illusions with genuine rather than performed enthusiasm. And it does not work. Not because you are stubborn or inflexible, but because you cannot force yourself back into unconsciousness. That door does not open backwards. Once you have seen something, you cannot unsee it through effort of will. You can only pretend you have not seen it. And pretending is its own kind of fight. The loneliness of this is profound. Not the loneliness of having no one around you, but the loneliness of being surrounded by people who are not experiencing what you are experiencing, who do not seem to be fighting themselves, who move through the world with a fluidity you have lost access to. Arendt wrote about plurality, the fact that human existence is always existence with others, that we become fully human in the space between people, in what she called the space of appearance. But what happens when the gap between how you appear and who you are becomes so wide that you cannot bridge it? What happens when the performance required to participate in this space of appearance demands that you leave your actual self behind? You end up feeling less human, not more, less connected, not more. Because the connection is happening between your performed self and other performed selves. Your actual self, the one doing all the seeing and understanding and questioning, remains isolated, remains fighting, remains exhausted from maintaining the gap between what you know and what you can say. Here is the truth that no one wants to tell you. This does not get easier. Consciousness does not circle back around to comfort. Awareness does not eventually produce peace. What changes is your relationship to the difficulty. You stop expecting it to be different. You stop fighting the fact that you are fighting. You accept that this is what consciousness at this level costs, the daily negotiation between what you see and what you can live with, the constant translation between your internal reality and external performance, the isolation that comes from perceiving things others do not perceive. You accept that this is the texture of your existence now, and you stop adding the secondary layer of suffering that comes from believing it should be otherwise. You are not doing this wrong. You are not broken. You are experiencing exactly what happens when thinking becomes a mode of being rather than an occasional activity. When examination is not a choice, but a condition. When awareness is not a state you enter during meditation, but the permanent lens through which you experience reality. The fighting continues, but it changes in quality. You are no longer fighting to make it stop. You are fighting to stay upright while it continues, to maintain your integrity while also maintaining your participation in the world. to honor what you see while still engaging with people who do not see it. This is a different kind of fight. Not a fight to win, but a fight to continue. And there is a strange strength that comes from this. Not the strength of overcoming, but the strength of enduring, of staying conscious when unconsciousness would be easier, of continuing to think when thoughtlessness would be more comfortable, of refusing to unknow what you know, even when that knowledge makes everything harder. This is not the heroism that gets celebrated. No one gives awards for the daily effort of maintaining consciousness. No one acknowledges the courage it takes to keep seeing when seeing brings no reward except more seeing. But it is a kind of integrity nonetheless. The integrity of not betraying your own awareness, even when that awareness betrays you. What I am offering you here is not a solution. I cannot give you a way to make this stop, or even to make it easier. What I can offer is a framework for understanding what is happening to you. You are not suffering from a disorder. You are experiencing the natural consequence of consciousness that has developed past a certain threshold. You are living in what Arendt called the life of the mind, and that life is in permanent tension with the life of action, the life of social engagement, the life of practical compromise that the world requires. You cannot resolve this tension. You can only learn to live within it, to stop expecting that someday you will figure out how to be both fully conscious and fully comfortable. To accept that the examined life, the thoughtful life, the aware life, comes with a cost that must be paid daily. And to recognize that paying this cost is not a sign of failure, but a sign that you are taking consciousness seriously, that you are refusing to betray what you see for the sake of what would be easier, that you are choosing again and again to remain awake even when sleep would be more restful. The people around you do not understand this because they are not living it. They offer advice that applies to their reality but not to yours. They tell you to think less, worry less, care less, as if these were choices you are refusing to make, rather than capacities you have lost access to. They mean well. They want to help. But they are trying to solve a problem you do not have. Your problem is not that you are thinking incorrectly. Your problem is that you are thinking at all, that your mind will not stop its examination, that your awareness continues regardless of whether you want it to. And the solution they offer, to simply stop doing the thing you cannot stop doing, is not actually a solution. It is a dismissal of your experience dressed up as help. So you smile and thank them and continue fighting yourself in silence, because to explain what is actually happening would require them to understand something they have not experienced. And you are too tired to take on the additional labor of making them understand. But here is what I need you to hear. There are others fighting this same fight. Others who wake up already exhausted from the effort consciousness requires. Others who translate constantly, who perform normalcy while feeling alien, who see through everything and must pretend they see nothing. You are not alone in this, even though you feel alone. And while I cannot make the fight stop, I can offer you the recognition that the fight is real, that it is not a personal failing, that it is the natural cost of seeing clearly in a world built on agreed-upon blindness. This recognition does not solve anything, but it ends the isolation. It confirms that what you are experiencing is not a private pathology, but a shared condition. The condition of being conscious in a way that most people are not, of thinking in a way that does not shut off, of seeing what cannot be unseen, and of having to navigate a world that was not designed for people who see this much. If what I am sharing here touches something in you that has been untouched by other explanations, if this is giving you language for an experience you have been unable to name, then I want you to know something. I create these explorations every week for people who are tired of being told their awareness is the problem. For people who are ready to understand consciousness as it actually operates, not as spiritual teachers promise it will operate. For people who know that seeing clearly does not make life easier, and who need frameworks that acknowledge this rather than deny it. I do not offer you quick fixes or simple solutions because you are not dealing with a simple problem. You are dealing with the fundamental tension between consciousness and comfort, between awareness and ease, between seeing clearly and living smoothly. These tensions cannot be resolved. They can only be understood, and understanding them changes how you relate to them, even if it does not change the tensions themselves. If you want to continue this exploration with me, If you want companions on this particular journey, rather than guides promising destinations they cannot deliver, then consider subscribing. Not because I have answers you do not have, but because the questions you are living with deserve serious examination rather than dismissal, because the difficulty you are experiencing deserves recognition rather than pathologizing, because the fight you are fighting every day deserves to be seen as the profound engagement with consciousness that it is rather than a personal failure to be fixed. I will be here every week going deeper into these territories, examining what consciousness actually costs, exploring what it means to live with awareness that cannot be turned off, understanding the isolation, the exhaustion, the daily negotiation that comes with seeing too much. And I would be honored to have you here as part of this community of people who refuse to pretend they see less than they do. So if this feels right, subscribe, and share in the comments what aspect of this fight is hardest for you. Your experience matters, your struggle is real, and naming it helps all of us feel less alone in it. The price of awareness is paid daily. There is no payment plan, no installment option, no way to discharge the debt. Every morning you wake up and the price is due again. The fight between what you see and what you can live with, between who you are and who the world wants you to be, between your consciousness and your survival. And you pay it, not because you want to, not because it feels good, but because the alternative, the surrender of consciousness, the voluntary return to blindness, is not actually available to you anymore. You have crossed a threshold. You cannot uncross it. So you fight yourself. Every single day, and some days the fight is quiet. A low-level tension you carry through normal activities, and some days the fight is loud. A screaming match between parts of yourself that want incompatible things. But it is always there. This is what it means to be awake in a world that operates on sleep, to be thinking in a culture that rewards thoughtlessness, to be seeing in a society built on selective blindness. You do not get to not fight. You only get to understand what you are fighting and why. What you are fighting is not yourself, not really. You are fighting the irreconcilable demands of human existence, the demand to be conscious and the demand to be comfortable, the demand to see clearly and the demand to function smoothly, the demand to maintain integrity and the demand to maintain relationships. These demands cannot all be met simultaneously. Something must be sacrificed. And what you sacrifice every day is ease, is the fluid participation in social life that people who think less have access to, is the comfort of believing what you are told, is the peace of mind that comes from not seeing the mechanisms beneath the surface. You sacrifice these things not because you are noble or because you have chosen some higher path, but because you cannot figure out how to stop seeing, how to stop thinking, how to stop being aware, and so the fight continues, and the price is paid. And you wake up tomorrow and pay it again. This is not a tragedy. It is not a crisis. It is simply what consciousness costs when you take it seriously, when you refuse to betray what you see, when you choose to remain awake, even when everyone around you is offering you very good reasons to go back to sleep. The fight is the price, and you are paying it every single day, and that is not a problem to solve. It is a reality to accept. The reality of being conscious in a way that does not let you rest, that does not let you stop, that demands constant negotiation between truth and viability, between what is real and what is tolerable, between who you actually are and who you need to be to survive in the world as it currently exists. You are fighting yourself every day, not because something is wrong with you, but because something is right with you that the world was not built to accommodate. Your awareness, your refusal to unsee, your insistence on remaining conscious even when consciousness offers no reward except more consciousness. This is the price, and you are not weak for finding it heavy. You are simply honest about what it weighs.